So for the last like 8 or 9 years, I've mainly edited my videos on Sony Vegas, or as it's more colloquially known as the thing you pirate to make YouTube poops when you're 14. Now, on a technical level, Vegas is objectively a good editing software. It has a good UI, a lot of cool visual and audio effects, good masking tools, yeah, I don't know. It's got stuff that makes it a couple steps above iMovie, which is probably the most sound way to gauge the quality of a software. But I gotta give it credit. Vegas taught me a lot about editing in terms of efficiency, style, pacing, you know, things you instinctually get better at the more you do something. And for the longest time, I had a crazy unhealthy obsession with it, and would straight up refuse to try anything else solely because it wasn't Vegas. Like, dude, I used to get into actual fights if someone said Premiere or Final Cut was better. This was like Nintendo fanboy levels of copium over an editing software. But as I've matured, I've kind of realized that Vegas just pisses me off now. There are a lot of small things this software either lacks or struggles with that makes it an absolute chore to use, especially now that I'm familiarized with other programs. How I can't pre-render clips on my timeline, bins being difficult to use, my custom keyboard resetting the same 2 shortcuts for no reason, the gray UI being uggo, specific fonts not working, shitting the bed if I use a nesting file or GIFs or anything that isn't a straight up MP4, not being able to color code markers, blah blah blah, you get it. Now, I'm sure there are ways to fix some of these issues in like a random hidden part of the options, and this is all coming from someone who's not the most knowledgeable editor in the world, but these small things just kept building up to a point where it got annoying to use Vegas altogether. This all came to a boiling point last month. Now, it's not what you're thinking, it didn't crash while I was working on a big video, or a file got corrupted. No. It's because sometimes there's this mild latency for doing the smallest shit, like undoing an edit, opening the masking menu, or even just moving clips on the goddamn timeline. This would always destroy my workflow, because for anyone who's not in the know, video editors are the most impatient people ever. We've been taught to constantly find the smallest ways to shave the most minuscule amount of time off our work. Yes, I know there's such thing as efficiency, but this is just visceral hatred. And because of this one small thing, I just snapped. I couldn't stand Vegas anymore. It was just making me so red in the face, gritting my teeth, punching holes in drywall, angry. So it's with a heavy heart that I must announce, I quit Sony Vegas.
He's so brave.
Thank you, thank you. Now, I feel people who are more functioning than I probably don't care what editing software I use. Well, after sitting with this for a bit, I realized it wasn't just about what software I used, but what ditching Vegas means for me in terms of improving as an editor. Looking back, I realized I saw Vegas as a crutch, given how comfortable I felt with it. Now, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this, because it's essentially just having a preference for one thing over another. But there's a fine line between having a preference and just straight up dependence. The problem with me is I was getting way too comfortable with Vegas. I wasn't challenging myself or finding ways to improve as an editor, which, you know, you shouldn't really do that for something you're passionate about. Because in reality, no matter what you're into, you know, video editing, sports, cooking, you're never gonna stop learning. And depending on how one reacts to that is what separates the boys from the men. To give an example, I've been playing bass guitar for about 8 or 9 years. And while I'm no Victor Wooten, I do consider myself above average because I'm always learning new songs or techniques to improve. But like I said, this didn't happen overnight. This was a process over the course of multiple years. So anytime I see someone pick up a guitar and the very first thing they want to learn is like master of puppets, suffice to say, it doesn't go too well. It's a process to get to that level, and I know some people pick it up faster than others, but you need to put the time in to get the results you want. Like you gotta learn about notes, chords, keys, tempos, looping the chord inside your guitar strap to look like a badass. And so when people realize this, they're dropped into a crossroad. Do they put the time in knowing it's gonna be a long and grueling process to achieve the outcome they want? Or just quit? Well, from my experience, it's almost always the latter. That's the morbid reality of all this. No matter how much time you put into something, you're never gonna stop learning. And that can be intimidating for some, especially if your results aren't promising at first. But the only way you're gonna get said results is by making an effort to improve. It's gonna suck and you'll probably get discouraged at times, but the payoff will, I don't know, hopefully be worth it. I'm sure there are still tons of things I don't know about Sony Vegas, especially if I were to upgrade to a version that isn't a decade old. But now that I have experience with other softwares, I realized how much I've been holding myself back. Either because I was intimidated to learn a new technique, or I thought I could just easily replicate it in Vegas. And that goes back to the dependence point. I was inadvertently plateauing myself because I was afraid to take the next step for improving. Again, Vegas is objectively a good editing software, but it's not something you should use for more than like 3 or 4 years. The pipeline is always Windows Movie Maker, Sony Vegas, Final Cut, and a small phase of Blender. Realizing this has helped rationalize a lot of doubts and insecurities I had with improving, because I think it all just comes down to a healthy balance of challenge. With editing, or like any of the other examples from earlier, I don't think you need to learn something crazy complicated every day, but you should still be proactive, like working towards a long-term goal or using a new skill you learned. Really, it's all just about pacing yourself, because speaking for myself, I can get overwhelmed easily when learning something new. And if I can't find a healthy balance, then that's when the insecurity kicks in. Not because I can't accomplish it, but because I didn't choose the best way to accomplish it. Again, this isn't speaking for everybody. I'm sure there are people out there who thrive off pushing themselves to their absolute limits every day. Whether intentional or not, we all have a process for achieving shit. Some might be faster than others, or more efficient, or more fulfilling, or more appropriate for the workplace. But hey, it's a process. And if that means cutting ties with something you're too reliant on, then so be it. For me, it was Sony Vegas, but for others, it might be quitting a job or leaving a relationship. Alright, extreme examples, but if you break up with your girlfriend of 5 years over this, tweet that at me and I'll let you be in the next video. To wrap this up all nice-like, don't be afraid of challenging yourself. If you're genuinely passionate about something, there should always be a drive in the back of your noggin to continue improving. But this comes with finding the right ways to improve, as in knowing what pace or methods work best so you don't get unmotivated and stay at the same skill level forever. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna suck at first? Dude, everybody sucks at everything. Just the more you do something, the less you overtly suck at it. You get better at playing off your mistakes and gain more confidence. Or stubbornness, whichever one suits you more. If any of you have struggled with plateauing or challenging yourself, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. With all that said, it's time to say goodbye to Sony Vegas. You were buggy and slow and crashed a lot and stupid and fat and restarted my goddamn keyboard shortcuts. I know I already said that one before, but it just pissed me off so much I couldn't let it go. Alright, that's it. Toodles!